to do that. I know Doug did. I don't know how rich Doug is. I don't know where Heiner lives on. I don't know. Sam has a job, I know. Tammy has no income. So we're all kind of struggling. Okay, we started to hate the old system and we don't want to be in the exploitative economy, but in the generative one. But you don't know how to do that yet. So it's a painful position to be in a way. And but that's also strongly motivating to kind of crack the nut, I would guess.
Creativity.
And exploration and testing and fast prototyping and creating generative patterns and test this locally in the outside world. So the sharing economy would probably start with the neighbors.
And part of the deal is that I just don't resonate with the with the old order. You know, like it makes me want to throw up. So I can't, you know, having a jobby job, not so much. Contributing where I can see a contribution is needed. And that's the non-quid pro scenario that I'm living. I'm like, oh, they need help. Let me help. I've got something that can help there. Or just being present with people while they're exploring. And yeah, so certainly it's not an old model that I'm considering we build on.
Thank you, Sammy. You said something I could have said myself. And Heidi, you want to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Big echo.
Shit.
So, okay, let me then use the time to speak shortly. You said something I could have said myself, but since you said it, I could hear it from the outside, and that helps, Tammy. I tend to have this resentment towards the old system, and while you're saying it, I said, Harry, that is stupid. And why is it stupid? Because with everything I have, I think to the old system, and nature builds the new system on top of the old one. So we should use the old one and put a better layer on top of it. And so dropping out is in some way just a very primitive reaction. That's what I'm thinking. It just came up. Thank you. Heiner, can you speak now?
Well, I'm checking it again.
Sign language, maybe.
Do I still have an audio problem?
No. Yes? I'm not getting an echo.
Okay, so I think I missed much of what was said in the last couple of minutes because my Zoom crashed. But let me at least go on record here also as saying I am at this moment the closest since I've ever been since graduating school to living month to month. I actually am living month to every 2 or 3 months, but you know, if those contract payments, and now I look like I've frozen again, I'm probably not being heard.
I hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Anyway, my video froze. So anyway, I'm just saying that I'm on a halftime contract with the game. I'm actually doing what I like to do. I'm right now getting paid halftime to do it, and therefore able to spend some time with you all here. But if that contract dries up, you know, I basically have about 2 or 3 months, and then I'm either on the street or looking for other work. So it's a current state that I don't feel comfortable in as a part of the change of jobs, change of location due to the divorce, etc. So, but anyway, I just wanted to say I don't want to necessarily spend much time on that story, but I'm in a somewhat similar, though perhaps not as dire situation, but more dire than it's ever been for me personally.
So I can speak now? Perfect. I like this questioning of the financial resource base. And I think I lived the last 2, 3, even more decades on somehow from the hand into the mouth, like Tammy said. And financially, I'm between Harry and Tammy. And I'm just in a little hideaway in an environment of elders or whatever. And we do each help each other. And sometimes you don't say this in public, but I really feel at home because I've seen many, many different people with quite different budgets. So I would love to go back to Gary or to do another session now, but I cannot. I have other things, but I can listen, which I enjoy very much. And sometimes I enjoy the videos. And definitely, I think it's very important that we learn a little bit about our base, because our assumptions and expectations and urgencies, like we had also in the other groups, all these urgencies, where do I sleep tomorrow? I have many friends sleeping here also, 1 night or 2 nights. So I know all this under the bridge, and I have seen a lot in my travels. And I think we all have something to give, but how to bring it together and harvest it, all the nuggets we can bring to the table. And I'm not just talking about Dave or Neil or Harry or whatever. That is a real challenge. What I will do, beside the other things I have to do now, is show you or send you 2 PowerPoint slides done by Gerard Middelly. And he gave it to me when I was with Tom and Aleko. Sam knows them, these dialogue guys, on how the different schools and systems do not speak from the same ground. And he wants, and maybe that is also my urge, to have to come to a common ground, because all the system schools, they are so good, so solid, but some only stand and the other sees and the other feels, and they only have processes or colors in mind. And I think that is the real challenge I have. And I hope very soon that we have a chance that we include Neil and some others. So I think we should really go beyond the words and the connotations to the common actions. No, last thing I wanted to say, you see, I'm running with 3 pieces of hardware software which are not working. So on one thing, I don't have the audio. So I'm not just a playboy that I have 2 monitors on, only to let you know. I'm a playboy, but not always.
Well, there's a little bit of silence. I need to make an apology because it looks like when my Zoom crashed, the recording failed. So the first part of today is likely lost.
Interesting.
Oh dear, no artifact.
Just the value that we created here.
In the barn raising attempt.
Still, it's an extremely interesting engagement because you all open up on a subtopic that for some has a lot of shame in it, that we're not a successful rich 1%, we're just struggling at the bottom, changing the world. That's the real work, the real deal, but it's not such a comfortable position. But we're pioneering something, and I do hope we'll find something or we'll die.
And I think it's remarkable that each of us has still crafted a way to carve out time and space and focus to be able to do this, you know, from where we each come from.
Well, I noticed not only in this network, there are many people like us because we all sense change needs to be done, or else the whole society will collapse. And we feel this because we are on the side where, the less comfortable side. So we feel the needs in our daily life, I think. And also, apparently we are mature and intelligent enough to understand what's happening and want to do something about it. But I think you have to be either willfully blind or stupid not to understand that things need to change.
We wrote around this humane information society 20 years ago that this new media are a danger to dump us down. And I see now, when we have all these communication possibilities, that everybody feels entitled or urged to save the planet. I mean, that's a good thing. But what I observe is that certain groups, like media, like civil society, like youth, like industry, like policymakers, try to save the world on their own without looking for the others, and even harder fighting in the hamster wheel. And this fight I just experienced before Christmas in Geneva was really making me tired, because we are so much fighting and talking that nobody is listening anymore.
It's a little thing which also I feel is relevant to this, is that my impression is that many of those who work on the cutting edge, so to say, of ideas and visions for the future, they are in a similar situation with too little resources, but there's also this sense of maybe being alienated from normal society and a sort of contempt against the old system. That there is a shadow side to that, because it might overlook that there are many very good things in the existing systems which tend to be underemphasized. I feel that's actually a part of the problem, is that the big visionaries and thinkers who sort of have great ideas, they're sort of culturally on fringes of sorts, and there's something about the connection between what they are doing and normal society, where something needs to be found. Because I also feel sure that there are many rich people who would willingly pay and support this kind of work if it was presented in the right way. But there is a sort of cultural tendency to go very out on the fringes, and conspiracy theories and sort of echo chambers, and that's also a part of the picture. I feel it's an important part of the picture to sort of keep in mind that when we're in these circles, we get a certain view of the world, which it's well, it has certain prejudice in a certain direction, you can say, which if we can keep it in mind, it's important. I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, but I really do see that there's a problem that of the communication between the fringes who have really great big ideas for the future and the sort of normal workers. And if that gap could be a little bit smaller, it actually might help everyone a great. I just wanted to put that in.
Can I just nab 30, 40 seconds, if I may, because I've got to run to another meeting in just a few minutes. I wanted to thank everybody for the call and for letting a bit of an interloper like me kind of join for this session. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And just really one parting thought for today, and that is that just back to the aspect of visual representation. We spoke briefly earlier on about this notion of a hierarchy of needs, values, assets, but and also a presentation of work in a way that attracting resources of various types is hopefully made easier by the manner in which the work, the opportunities are being presented. And so I just wanted to come back very briefly to the kind of tech tools, technologies that can do that, especially in this because we're operating remotely here. That adds to the challenge. If we were all in the same room and there was whiteboards and there was other stuff supporting us, it would be a very different experience. But as part of what I'm trying to weave, as we all are, is incorporating ways to be able to reflect this visually, and with the infinite game that would be kind of embedded in the game. But ahead of that, one of the aspects is what type of mapping. I know we spoke briefly about NewMap, but what type of mapping would this group, the GCC, because it's a very rich possibility field, and I'm just wondering, I'm sure you've had several conversations about it. I just wondered whether any of you had sort of trialed some of the sort of software that's already out there in terms of mapping, mapping this very generative sort of possibility field in terms of where the energy might be flowing to focus on the synergies, etc. So I'll leave it. I'll leave it there, and I'll listen to the remainder. Just kind of reflecting on that. So thank you very much.
Well, Gavin, just a few seconds, because I don't want to take too much time in this session, but I spent probably the last 30 years looking at word processors, outliners, mapping tools, mind mappers, topic mappers, issue-based conversation systems, et cetera, et cetera. So the short form of the answer is yes, but I'm still not very happy with what's out there, but I use them. I use a wide variety of them, and just to be on the record there, I currently use two, Workflowy and Axon 2000. are the two tools I currently use, but more on that later.
I'll just briefly say I've just recently began using something called Plectica, previously called Kingfisher, and that's a mapping tool for information where you have a canvas where you can basically put it all over the place, and images, and that has impressed me a lot. Also, there's new map which I haven't tried, and Thought Space. This is another visual tool which seems very interesting. And also personal brain. That's also another one. Yeah. But
Gavin,
I'm sure.
Gavin, I didn't get all of your presentation, but I consider myself a map and model maker, and I wonder if you include multidimensional maps, because for me there are three-dimensional models. There are color and tensor, including many-dimensional, extensional, immersive models. So I really would like to stay in touch, and as I didn't hear you before, hello from Berlin.
Hi, great. Yeah, I would love to do that because at the moment I've just got a working, if you like, a working title for that piece of the puzzle, and I just call it One Wealth Map. So, you know, it's anyway. I've got to run, but thank you all very much. Take care. Bye.
I'm running too. Bye.
Sam, you mentioned that you would have a big agenda for today and would speak most of the time, and of course that didn't happen. So did you?
Lucky for you. All.
I think I missed a lot of information from you, Sam.
Well, let me just touch on one thing, which is my small attempt to try and move this barn raising forward a little bit. And that is, I made reference earlier to the things that I think could help a group or a project or a team or a community form itself. And these are all imperfect suggestions, but they're imperfect in an attempt to try and get either discussion or experimentation / improvement on them. So just in really, really quick order, for a contact list, I don't think there's yet one single place where we go to find everybody in this group. And so I was just wondering if we might want to set one up. In other groups, I've used Google Sheets to do something like that. And that just gives people a way to, find phone numbers, find emails, find etc., possibly even links to blogs or other web presence, which I find very, very interesting. So proposal is to see whether or not we want to create a contact list. There was a very, very early one in a Google Doc, initially when Daniel and Aaron and Tammy were doing this, but I don't think it's been updated. Second item is to begin capturing the terms and glossary phrases, etc., that we use. Things like human being, things like transparency, things like, you all know the words that we sometimes bring up from week to week and meeting to meeting. But I think there are some slight nuances that we want to capture in that, because I think that when we come up against other groups, not against, but meet other groups, how we use certain terms can actually be very interesting to other groups as they encounter us, and likewise, the same way. So I'm proposing a glossary, and I'm willing to share a glossary of about 400 terms I've developed from a different group. I don't want to transport or import it. I want us to develop our own, but I think it'd be useful to see, what one has looked like. Third, I'm going to leave for later, because third is project charter, and I know we're far from having something like that. The fourth is something I used to call rules of engagement. And in this particular forum, I'm actually proposing the how-tos as a start for that. There's been about, I don't know, at least a half a dozen how-tos I've written, and they range from very simple things like, how do we approve members' requests to join the Facebook group, for example, which is a drafted how-to. I'm not sure anyone has actually looked at it. All the way to a meta-level how-to, which is how do we write a how-to? And there's one in there called how do we make decisions? And there's another one in there called how do we know who's active in this particular group? So there's 5 parts to a how-to, and it's all written up. But I basically wanted to say, rather than come up with a big formal charter with a big constitution or whatever, I just wanted to take little things, point decisions, point actions, and see whether or not we could come to some small agreements around them, and then tease out what are the more fundamental issues and get all the way down to how do we make decisions, how do we know who we are. But those are the how-tos that I've identified and drafted. And I've put them in Slack for now, simply because there's been no other place. There's a channel called How To in Slack that I would point you all to and see if you would like to improve on them, because I know that there's lots of room for improvement and lots of room for reflection on those. The next item is, where do we put team decisions? I don't know that we've actually made any decisions yet. But once we do, it'd be kind of curious to see how we share them, because it's not useful just for us, but it's also useful for new members coming in, as well as other groups that might potentially want to hook up with us. Similar to team decisions, another fundamental object is the chronologue, just the timeline of what happens when. That's a very useful construct, because then we can say, well, last Thursday this happened, and then from that node or event or object, we can link all kinds of other media or events or notes or others on it. So a chronologue is very useful, and that's also very consistent with the idea of calendar. So right now, there is a GCC calendar that most of you are actually able to control and get notifications from. The question is, do we want to use that as a chronologue? It's not really built to be a chronologue, but they're very similar ideas. They're both time-ordered objects. The next one is another one that I will defer to future, because I don't think yet we know or we want action items for ourselves or others and to be able to even track them. But if we ever want to, that in a project context is also often a very useful construct. I mentioned calendar already, but the last one is basically what would be a library. Again, if we had a knowledge repository, it's the place we put all the third-party works that we reference that hook us into the rest of the world. And so I'm just calling it a references library. Now, if you had, let's say, if Doug had continued 40 years of work, he would have a dynamic knowledge repository, and we'd be able to put this all there. But we don't have that. So we have a bunch of point solutions that we could potentially glue together, tie together to sort of solve our needs, at least for the short term. In reference to one of Doug's early remarks, where tools are just tools are just tools, usually I'm in groups where tools are not just tools are not just tools. Tools reflect what we do and how we do them. And if we're constantly learning, ideally, we're constantly improving what we do, and from time to time, we choose to change the tools that we decide to use. So if given that background, all of these suggestions are temporary. Like, for example, I could say for contact list right now, let's use Google Sheets until we find something better. For glossary, let's use Google Sheets until we find something better. For rules of engagement, let's use how-tos until we find something better. For a calendar, let's use Google Calendar until we find something better. For references library, I don't know, we all just post links here willy-nilly. So anyway, that was a conversation I would like to stimulate, and it doesn't have to be today. I know we've gone close to 3 hours already. But anyway, that's a setup perhaps for the next conversation, or at least a future conversation that we could have around how we come to some sort of a shared memory. Over for now.
Okay, I'm looking at Slack, and I see you have all those how-tos. So I have to read them and understand them first. But I feel that you just proposed a total organization, which is fine by me. And when I like quick prototyping, so my suggestion would be you'll just use it until you do have something better, because I haven't invented anything yet. And I'm not intending to either, until I think, oh, maybe this is smarter, faster, easier, because I'm extremely lazy in organizing.
By the way, just to make sure you know, there's also another how-to there from Tammy on how to do the media creation activity.
Okay, but nothing from me. I'll try to understand them first. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Sam, for those contributions. And I agree. I think all of those things are useful, and a first examples of them would be great for us to start with, and then some process for, oh, there's this thing that does exactly that, that's already created, which is often, I think, what we're going to find as we do our explorations, especially with the cohort of people that are here and present and those that we're connected to. So it'd be useful to just the just do it modality would be great.
So I just did it.
Yeah, I'm in alignment with that, with all of what was said. The one thing that I would express a personal preference toward is, rather than using Facebook for the calendar function, I'd much rather use Google Calendar, just because it's ubiquitous and it automatically adjusts time zones, because I am really bad at that. So I miss things. I'm an hour off, an hour early, an hour late, or not, wrong. So if we could consensus, if the consensus could be that we circle up around Google Calendar for our chronologue function, that would be great.
Okay.
And
anybody against it?
No, and that is what we're using.
Okay, so and this is just sort of personal mention note, but the single most thing for me in any collaborative context, for me to be successful as a contributor in it, is signaling. Like, there's one or multiple mode notices of, this is a meeting, this is when, this is the link, this was posted, this is something you're involved with, you want to read, that early and quickly, that as we start to actually build that we make sure that the signaling is robust, so that nobody misses something they want to catch or need to catch, because they weren't aware of it or didn't get the message. And redundancy in that realm, I'm a firm believer in, meaning if I get 3 emails and 4 pop-ups on Facebook and a partridge in a pear tree, all good. Bottom line is, I want to be there. And my ability to make sure I catch it is exponentially increased by the signaling we stand up associated with whatever we're doing.
So for the record, there's a big echo. I believe I added you to the Google Calendar, and I believe you're in the Slack workspace. So every event that's in the Google Calendar, you can actually customize those reminders for, as you know. But in addition, I've also synchronized it into the calendar channel inside Slack. So if you go to your calendar channel inside Slack, you'll see reminders, usually 10, 15 minutes ahead of time, but you'll get days reminders as well. So there's a whole week's post of what's coming up the upcoming week and all of those events. So just FYI, that exists.
Just a little thing. I'm in Slack now, and I don't see any how-to channels.
Go to the channels, and I think there's a way to do it. Just, in fact, just someplace, just type pound how to, and probably get a link right to that channel.
Yeah, if you go to channels, you're able to see the ones you can join. But until you've joined them, you're not going to see it on your the little bar of channels on the left.
Okay, and where is the calendar in Slack?
Again, it's channel.
It's a channel as well. Okay.
Okay, so I have to join it for.
Great, you saw it too, Harry?
Yeah.
Great.
I would also like, just because it's sort of one of those, pregnant 9.5 months types of deals. I have a deeper dive doc that is a bit of a drill down on the CMM work that Fabian and I have been doing. And what I'd love to do is share that. So I'll email a link to that. So you can sort of, just get a sense of what that's about. I'd be very in people's feeling and reaction to it. It's very much a sort of concrete rubber meets the road affordance kind of thing. Like, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, it needs to do this. And they're grouped by domains like attribution, data, workflows, registration, communication, signaling. It gets pretty, I think it's fairly intuitively obvious what it is. If you hit a particular section where you go, like, what the hell is this talking about? Then, just make a note so hopefully we could talk about it. But I think it might help jumpstart, because I think there's a lot on it that people have stuck their hand in the air and gone, that and that, and that. There are pieces of the elephant that people have vested years and lives in. So that'll be coming.
I look forward to seeing that, Doug.
Yeah.
And are you suggesting to share that by email because it's not publicly shareable at the moment?
No, it's currently set up. It's in two places. It's a resident PDF on the site, and it's a doc on a drive. And I would be absolutely to make it shareable or add it to a group repository here as an iterative foundation or base or starting place. But I sort of would like to baby step that and not assume or presume. So it's sort of like, take a look at this. If everybody likes it or likes where it's beginning, then we'll figure out, how to set it up and stand it up so we can work off of it, leverage it. Yeah. But I don't want to presume that anybody wants it, likes it or wants to use it, or that it works for them. So,
So you'll send it on the email, because I really want to look at that.
Yeah, I'll actually.
If it's online, just send a link to it, Doug.
Hold on. I can do that.
So while Doug is doing that, I just wanted to acknowledge that at least my corner of the world, technology failed us today. So would we like to introduce a practice where, maybe 2 or 3 of us who volunteer could record, just so we have some redundancy,
Agreed. And I also like having 2 views of this, because we have that potential, because it may be useful that we pull just what Harry said from 2 hours, 15 minutes to 2 hours, 25 minutes as one piece that he may find useful to share, or that is a wrap up, or, that it has usefulness. But it's nice to have just the one person that's speaking on the screen for alternate uses of this. But if it was just the one person on the screen, we're not reading the field, which is what I feel is one of the most powerful effects of this style of video conferencing. So I like both. So it'd be nice to have that as one of our how-tos, one of our operationalized protocols.
The link is in the chat. So you know, take a look and let me know what you think.
By the way, one very small saving grace is that the chat transcript from the beginning has not been lost. So we still have that set of notes.
Well, I was copiously transcribing, so we got a lot.
But I, you know, did
Learning
that.
channels.
That's good.
Great.
So let me say, I did have a huge agenda, and thank you guys for controlling my me so that I didn't take over. At least one small thing I wanted to bring up, and I know we didn't deal with it in depth, but that is, you know, at least a proposal for some of those 8 artifacts, 2 of which right now don't apply. So I'm going to write a little note somewhere, I guess it's Facebook, I'll put it in Slack as well, about the proposed areas that could be a starting point for each of these things, and let's see where that goes. Thank you.
That's great.
And I think we might actually be wending our way to a barn building, by the way. It's not like clear and obvious how we're getting there, but I think we're getting there.
Well, I think I dropped my end of the first wall, so we got
Keep the faith, baby.
I'm still there. I'm still here. And you know, I've made a poll up there saying, "Are you in, or are you not ready to say you're in?" I thought that was an interesting thread there. Are we all maxed out?
I am.
I am.
I think so.
Could I try to summarize what I got out of this in a
Yeah, that'd be great, Terry.
Well, first I have to, if I want to stay in touch with you guys, I have to check my Google Calendar because the events are on that. And if I want to understand what's happening in content-wise, I have to check Slack and follow that and understand that because I don't visit that very often. So that's work for me. And then I just noted for myself, and that's just for after I get my life back online in order, which will take a month or so. But I think we need. I need to buy Zoom. I need to buy Zoom. It's not free account anymore because I want to be able to do everything with this tool. I use it a lot, more and more. And those online videos, I think in the future they need to be summarized. And Glenn found a way to automatically transcribe them, so that's a possibility. And my guess would be that online we could always also find a way to summarize that text because you want the way this format is extremely time consuming, and people say there was an acronym for that, too long to read or something like that, and I totally agree with that. It's very time consuming, and in exploring and orienting that's okay, but once we get towards barn raising, that takes a day normally and not a year. So I want to speed up and be more focused and practically and purpose oriented and blah 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 that. So the artifacts need to be created far more automatically because that is technically perfectly possible, I would guess. Maybe we need nerds in here. And so that's the practical part of it. And as far as our ambition goes to save the world, I think what I'm looking for as deliverables, finally, that we find patterns to connect and to collaborate and trust and start actions that I can reach out to people all over the world, resources or not, or rich or poor, I don't care, who can help me do what is needed here, now and tomorrow. That's simple. So that's what I get out of this out of the day. With that, I'm complete and tired and hungry because I should have been eating an hour ago. Okay. Your sign language is perfect, Heiner. You can't speak, but you're going. Is that it? Goodbye, and thank you for participating.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you next time.
Bye for now. Thank you all.